Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
It's debate season again, but is anyone actually going to watch?
Can you possibly endure watching another presidential debate?
Do you want me to answer honestly?
Yeah, I really do. I want to know honestly.
The honest answer is it feels like no. But, once it starts, we'll get into it.
How? How do you do that? How do you muster the ability to get through it? It's torture for me.
It's getting worse and worse every time, too, isn't it? So I really don't know what. It's kind of like you with a Cleveland Browns quarterback. Can it get any worse? Oh, but wait, it will. It will. So, and again.
Yeah, I think you described it exactly. I can't think of anything more painful to watch on television than a Browns game or a presidential debate.
What makes this even harder? Probably that it seems as though the Democrats are only interested in Joe Biden running for re-election, and nobody's convinced he's cognitively up to it or even deserves it after his performance. And then on the right, there's this assumption that it's Donald Trump's and he has every right to have another run at it. And so nobody's really honestly vetting these other people. We're playing personality politics over substance and real problems and real ideas to solve them. And then we don't even know if Trump's going to be in the debate. And this is all happening while MSNBC, CNN, and Fox are at their lowest ratings ever. We don't care about the people that are going to dominate the debate that are supposed to be moderators. We don't care about the candidates, most of them that are on the stage. Yeah, I think we're set up for a really low expectation here. They got the Little League World Series won't be going on at the same time.
All right, think this through with me. What in the world is happening in the production meetings where these people who are supposed to be these esteemed journalists across all of whatever network's going to carry the thing, how can they sit around in their pompous selves and come up with a methodology whereby they could ask questions? Now, look, the people on the stage are interesting. I could handle listening to them answer some questions. They're interesting people. They know how to talk. I mean, they've been working at it long enough. Why is it that these debates are so scripted and so horrid? The first thing that comes to mind is it doesn't matter what network they're on. It seems like the only reason that the debates are there is for whoever the moderator is or moderators are, is for those people to ask a gotcha question that makes them look smarter than everybody else on the stage.
There is, first of all, they're making the focus themselves and not us, who have to make a very difficult decision. And then they could be aiding us by helping us vet these people. So they're making it about themselves, not the candidates. They focus on the narratives. I go back to, and it sounds like I'm trying to give you a pat on the back, but you at the public square did something so interesting with the non-debate debate in that everybody got the same question.
Yeah.
That's never done.
Yeah.
Why should they all have questions that relate to the narratives of their campaign versus same types of questions? Like, wouldn't it be interesting to turn to Ron DeSantis and say, after graduating from Yale and after getting a law degree at Harvard, why didn't you become a lawyer? Why did you then go to the Navy for 16 years? And then maybe ask a similar question of the other candidates and decisions they made earlier in life, long before they knew they were going to run for president.
Now, there's an interesting question.
But they'll never do that, right?
No. Why don't you tell us more about yourself? Here's a question. How about we have a question say, please describe for me the most important part that you see in the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, you'll never get that. Yeah.
Could you imagine? Do you remember you were doing a radio show in somewhere in the country, and a candidate for governor came in to be interviewed that day, and you couldn't be there. So I got the call to fill in for you, which I was happy to do. I appreciated the fact you called. Well, this particular candidate had a decision to make whether he was going to talk to the A team or the fill-in guy. So, he showed up. First question I asked him is, tell me what the Declaration of Independence means to you. He looked at me and he said, nobody's ever asked me that question before. And I felt badly that I caught him so off guard. But you would think someone running for the seat of governor in a major state would have thought through the founding era to the place that he had a position on what he could explain and converse about the Declaration of Independence. Wouldn't it be fascinating to know?
Do you think at Fox, CNN, MSNBC, the major networks, or whoever's going to be hosting some of these debates, they're even thinking about this like a job interview? This is a job interview. and you're interviewing this person for a job, and we're all the ones that are doing the hiring, watching. They never even ask questions like, why are you running for president?
The edge, the animus, that I know something you don't know. Let's see if I can get you to mispronounce a name. Let's see if I can catch you on a part of the world you don't know something about. It's sort of like, I feel like we're in an amusement park walking down the Midway, and all of these candidates are like bozo clowns. Yeah. All right. And the idea is to throw a question at him and knock him off the pedestal. That's the idea.
I was thinking of, is it pound the mole? What is it?
Yeah, whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole. I was thinking more like whack-a-mole. They're trying to whack him out.
So why do politicians and the political parties, why do they play this game? It is a mystery to me. It's horrible television. It's lousy content. I mean, I'm banging my head against the wall just talking about it right now. I mean, I'm pounding my hands. It's such lousy TV. It's such disrespectful, lousy communication. It's adversarial. And then the sanctimoniousness of all the candidates. Did you see the movie Man of the Year with Robin Williams?
No.
Oh, you got to watch this movie, Man of the Year. Robin Williams, he's a talk show comedian who ends up running for president. And the apex of the movie is the debate. Now, for everyone who hasn't seen that movie, I won't do the spoiler alert for it. I'm not gonna tell you that because you need to watch that movie because he exploits the sanctimoniousness. And Christopher Walken's in the movie. And he's hilarious. He's the lead consultant, and he talks about the debates. He's so funny, talking about first you got to thank your wife, then you got to thank this person, then you thank them for the question.
I know what we need to do. We need to have Christopher Walken make an appearance on this show at some point.
It would talking to us about the debates.
Maybe we'll even do the question.
It would be perfect. Okay, so here's the other thing: who invented the idea of? Thank you very much for that question.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what did you think they were going to do?
Right.
Recite the Iliad from home? What are they going to do?
Well, then
they're going to ask you a question. Why do I have to thank you for asking me the question? Do they thank you for answering it?
And it gets even worse in that, you go through the questions. First of all, you shouldn't have a completely different debate depending on the network you're watching, but that's how much the networks interject themselves and the us side versus them that they're coming from. But then you get into the recap and the analysis and the focus groups, all designed. So from their preparing of the questions and the entire debate to
who won this debate? What debate? It wasn't a debate.
Exactly. So they'll have the highlights they choose. It's also by, here's my problem. As somebody who is in charge of making this hire, I don't have any more further information to make the hire. No. Having watched it. And that's where it ultimately fails itself. And then they wonder why they can't get a read on polls.
It's pathetic. So if I got it right as of late, it could be changing any minute, but so far it looks like Trump's not going to participate in the presidential debate.
That's what he says, and that's
to which I say, hooray, hooray, fantastic. Why bother?
Well, we're talking about how dysfunctional this is. One thing you can count on, I disagree with myself. That's one thing you can't count on. All of them, no matter what network it is, they'll be attacking Donald Trump and unfair to him. So why should he bother?
Yeah, I mean, what's the point? Furthermore, I wish that all of them would pull out and say, this is just stupid. There's a thing called YouTube. We're going to have our own debates. We don't need you people anymore. The Presidential Debate Commission, founded by blah, 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 and blah, 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 and all the sanctimonious about nonpartisan, blah, 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 blah. Then you've got the Republicans coming up with this idea that you're going to have to take a pledge. Did you get that one?
Yeah.
That if you want to be on the debate stage, you have to take the pledge that you'll support the nominee. What is this? Is this like the Communist Party? So what if I don't?
And when did that become? That goes back to the very first debate with Donald Trump, and then that has now become the new paramount Pax Americana you have to have.
What the heck? To get on the debate stage, you have to surrender your conscience? Okay, so here's the nominee. We found out that the nominee's got 15 different scandals that we didn't know about, and now suddenly it looks like the last thing we want to do is nominate this person, but he is the nominee. Well, what if I say, excuse me, I object? What are you going to do?
No, there's no consent of the governed involved here. But it's funny because, we talked about this earlier. At what point is this not just your indicted guy against our indicted guy? But my point is, and can you imagine how that's going to impact debates that any of them are involved with? That'll be a whole Has nothing to do with America and America's challenges and who's going to rise up and solve them and lead us, many people, in one direction that solves them. It'll all become about their past actions that have led to a current indictment, whether it's politically driven or legally driven. And it's just going to. So now you're even going to add more chaos to something that's already broken. But I want to ask you a question. Debates have a history of playing a huge role in who wins these jobs. What do you think they have now?
I'm sorry. What were we talking about? Oh, the debates. Okay.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? The fastest way to fall asleep in America. I'd rather watch Mike Lindell My Pillow commercials than to watch these debates.
No, I'm worried.
The
guy. Did you see the guy make a boat out of tape? That's the one I want to watch. But no. But seriously. But do you think? All right. So I mean, it's a projection. What role do you think these debates are going to play in the primary process? Do they still have anything left in them in terms of influence?
No, totally nonsensical. They're just, everyone is so roboted. I mean, you'd swear they've all got people in their ears and controlling their voice boxes. They never make a mistake. It's all good. Blah, blah,
Could someone have a gaffe so bad that it could cost them the trajectory?
Okay, but look, now what we're really, yeah, exactly. So we're basically watching the presidential debates for the United States of America, hoping that somebody's pants fall down. That's what we're down to right now. It's like, okay, let's hope somebody makes a totally stupid, a horrible thing that happens. Like, let's hope that a fly lands on Mike Pence's head, and that's all we talk about for the rest of the time. And that was the vice presidential debate.
I got to tell you, it's my favorite debate moment since H.W. Bush looked at his watch. That white as snow hair, it was an amazing fly.
And the fly didn't move. The question is, did the gel product kill the fly, which makes Trump an anti-environmentalist? I don't know. However, the only thing that is crazier than debates is polls. I got to tell you a story about a poll.
I want to hear it.
Michael and David have been doing radio for a long time, and now they're also doing a podcast together. It's astounding. No one has ever done that before. A radio and podcast at the same time. But whether it's politics, policy, or hilarious anecdotes about growing up Italian, they've got you covered here at 1850 Main Street. Find out more at 1850mainstreet.com.
We had a ballot issue in Ohio that got coverage everywhere. Washington Post, Atlantic, CNN, everybody covered it. A whole big thing about 60% supermajority because they tried to link it to an upcoming fight in Ohio on abortion, which is coming up in the November ballot. Okay. And there were two sets of polls. Now, let's get this part. This is an August election. So it's not real tough. There's one thing on the ballot. There's going to be maybe 3 million people show up. All right. So they've got one poll, one question, and two different groups attack it. One group connected with USA Today attacks the poll. They show it that the issue is going to be defeated 57-43. I think that's what it was. The next poll comes out from Ohio Northern University. Now, the number of universities have over the years have made names for themselves, made money for their universities, and other things that all come with that sort of thing by doing polling. All right, we talk a lot about the different Marist College poll and all those. So there have been universities then polling for years. So Ohio Northern decides they're going to do this poll. So they run the poll, and it comes out 42-41, no versus yes, and the rest undecided. That poll comes out about 10 days after the first poll. You got one poll that says 57-43. The other poll says 42-41.
Well, one obviously got to the bottom of the undecided.
And what ended up happening was the election happens and it comes out to be 57-43, spot on. And you dig down in the research and what you find out is lots and lots and lots of excuses. Now, we're going to be hit with polls like there's no tomorrow.
Oh, and how?
Between now and election 2024. And I think it's important for people to understand when most people hear about a poll, what they think is, okay, some poor bunch of people got the job that they had to call like 1,000 people who most of whom hung up on them. And then they had to identify themselves and get hung up on again. And then finally on the third try, somebody finally took their call and answered and said, yes, I'll answer your poll. So they got on the phone and then they read a series of questions to those people and they got the answers that they got. Now, somebody, not the phone call people, but somebody who made up the poll went through a period of construction on this poll, creating a question and a series of questions where they felt that the true opinion of the respondent would be represented. And so then they had to build a model. If I'm building it for the state of Ohio, I've got to recognize there's 5 regions in the state of Ohio. If I'm building it for Tennessee, there's a different number of regions. I got to have enough people from Memphis that would be a part of a statewide vote. I got to somebody from Nashville. If I'm doing it in Florida, I've got 6 different major states inside that state. So I got to make sure that Miami's represented, Tallahassee's represented,
Panhandle,
Jacksonville, the I-4 corridor. I got to put together a model of the state, and then I got to transfer that to a mathematical equation that says if I have this many people I talk to by the phone, and I can be sure that they're likely voters, not just people, but that they assure me that they're going to vote, that my sample is representative of the state. Now, that's the science of the poll, and that's why they cost so much money, because people have to really build all that data, put it in an algorithm, make it into an equation, and make it come out where it looks like it's pretty balanced. Then you've got to go into the actual field and do the calls. That's old school polling. Guess what? Almost nobody does that anymore. So we were raised believing you could trust polls because they were talking to people and they're talking to them on the phone and it's current. No. First off, almost nobody's got a landline.
It's a big part of it.
Secondly, whoever's got a cell phone doesn't answer their calls if they don't recognize the caller. So they could call 1,000 people and get 5 to answer or 100 to answer. They can't afford that.
And the smaller the sample size, the larger the margin of error for people that aren't in the polling business.
Exactly. But now, so what they have done, and this includes major polling companies who will remain nameless so that we don't get involved in litigation. There are major polling companies that have now switched their mechanism. They do online polls. And you stop and say, whoa, online polls. Woo, you're just going to walk into the wild, wild west of the internet and do polling? Whoa, where's the controls on that? What they're doing is over the years, they've been constructing panels. Get this. This kind of sounds like the switch between Arbitron ratings and Nielsen ratings, right? When it comes to radio, like you used to get a book. Now, what
you get a meter.
now you get a meter. So now what they do is
same dollar bill, but now you get a meter. Yeah.
They build a relationship with a person online that they feel fits their parameters for what it takes to build their model. And then they facilitate that person and you become a part of the club. You become part of the polling club for like the next number of years.
And if you have a bad representation, you have a consistent bad poll.
So let's just ask ourselves, how objective can this be? Number one, you have to be very savvy with the internet. So that cuts out a lot of people.
Especially the ones more likely to vote, which are elderly.
Right. So number two, you have to be really interested in politics on the internet to be willing to stick with this thing. Number three, you got to be a joiner. So you got to have time on your hands that you're willing to do this. Number four, you got to be willing to forfeit a significant portion of your identity and privacy, because to get all that information to make sure it's really you got to give it to a polling company. And now you're a part of the club. Well, then let me ask you something. Once you become part of the club, how much of your daily living now changes in your attitudes and your parameters about how you study? How real are you? You're now part of the system. So how objective is it? But they don't tell you this is how they're doing their polling now. And these are big companies.
It's interesting because you've done research in the past, as I have, albeit mine was for radio, same principle. There are things you do in research and there are things you do in focus group. But to use a focus group style for research is like, because you would, all right, so if I want to know what the market whole is or the market opportunity is, I want to talk to a proper sample size of the market and I want to ask questions very specific, not very tainted. I use a focus group for people that are already fans of my radio station, if you will. This sounds like you're doing a focus group. So we have methodology, real breaches. We have reach issues. People don't have home phones anymore. And when you see potential scam call, it's not put the golf club down and answer. And then thus you have a compromised sample size. There are a couple of other things I wanted to dust out with you. Maybe you can explain. One is we saw it with Trump. By the way, frankly, we saw it with Obama. Obama was always undermeasured about 4 points. And we saw that with Donald Trump in 2 different elections where they didn't see him coming because for some reason he would undersample about 4 points. It might suggest really transformative type personalities are hard to get a read on. But I wanted to cut to the chase and say what we saw in the last election was they had a really hard read on the House. And especially when it came to generic polling, meaning do you plan to vote Democrat or you plan to vote Republican? Like Trump and like Obama before it, off over 4 points. Could some of this be the death of the two-party system and the way we used to reach these people accurately was through parties, and now we can't get them because they're not only on a cell phone, they're independent?
Let me tell you what you just walked into is the final point of the biggest controversy on where polling is no longer legitimate. It used to be that you polled Democrats, Republicans, and independents. And if you wanted, people say, where do Democrats stand? These are real Democrats. Here's where they stand. Here's where Republican stands. Here's where the independent stands. Now the polling companies, for whatever reason, I don't know, force you to identify or to lean to a party. So the polls come out and says Democrats and those independents that lean Democrats say X. Republicans and those who lean independents say Y. Well, what about the people who are independents and don't lean toward either party? We don't even know if they count anymore. That's how they do their numbers.
And that's a huge chunk of America.
Huge number. So the point of it all is you're wondering what happened to polling. We just told you what happened to polling. Polling is dying because people don't want to talk anymore because there's another factor that's involved. The more polarized the cultures become, the less people want to tell people where they stand because they don't want to be bullied by anybody.
One last question. What are you more excited about? A season of polls or a season of debates? And will either of them add anything to helping you make the right choice?
I'm out. I'm going to go watch Man of the Year. The late Robin Williams was outstanding in that movie, and Christopher Walken.
Who's moderating?
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.